We're hoping that the guys have had they all have time to watch the film and the cuts so they can see mistakes that we made. And it's really it's kind of, you practice to get reps, and probably sound like I'm trying to make excuses, but we're playing teams with no scrimmages and no games under our belt, and with 3 weeks of practice. And, we're playing against very good teams that have had, at least a couple more weeks of practice and have scrimmage and game situations. So we're, frankly, we're behind. There's nothing that we have any control over. So we've just got to dig in and do the best we can. As coaches, you have a checklist of things that you want to accomplish by the time you get to your first contest. And we haven't had time to cross everything off. So we're still working on that. And you kind of have to pick and choose. You got to narrow things down. You got to go with your bread and butter, what you need to work on first. And then you add to it as the year goes along. So we're trying to get caught up, but you will know more against Virginia on Saturday night.
Did that kind of, not to say knock your guys down a peg or so, but you feel it was good early on to maybe get that out of the way and say, you know what, you guys, we had high expectations, but, look what can happen.
Yeah, you always try to find the silver lining, right? And they certainly are listening very well this week. Sometimes, you come off a win and we don't listen as well as you do coming off a loss. And they all recognize, and, there's a lot of, a lot of little things. We start off, we did some decent things offensively, but then, all of a sudden we don't get back, from offense to defense. We're giving up odd numbers, at the other end of the field. And you have to focus on every little thing. I'm a little disappointed that, although we haven't had a lot of practice, we've had some experienced players come back, and for them to make some of the mistakes they made was disappointing. But we pointed them out, and they watched it on film, and they've already corrected some of those things in the first 2 days of practice this week. And we're giving it, we're a little bit short because we play on Sunday, then you have to take one day off a week. So, not only are we had not a lot of practice time, but we're going to be short a day of preparation going into Virginia.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck Saturday.
Yeah, thanks.
Next, we go to Andrew Crane.
Hey, John. Just wanted to ask briefly about Owen. I know he ran on the second midfield line, some man up, and then at the end in the fourth quarter, he was out there at attack over Griffin. What do you kind of envision his playing time being over the course of the season? And do you picture him eventually kind of stepping into that attack spot over Griffin if needed?
We'll use, at that point in time, we wanted to, there was something I saw on the man up that you might have noticed. We switched he and Steve. Steve had an opportunity early, and I think Owen just finished the ball a little better in that position. So that was an adjustment as the game went on. And then, near the end of the game with our, athletic midfielders, we felt that having another lefty in there that could finish, could help spark us and get him some experience there. Like I said a week ago, I think that as the season goes on, you're going to see more of Owen, out there as the year goes on.
Thanks, Andrew. Next, we'll go to Mark Larson.
Hey, John. We talked last week about trying to pick up where you left off last year, and the first quarter, anyway, looked like you were kind of doing that. Have been able to figure out what happened after that? Was it almost not a good thing that maybe the guys were feeling too good about themselves there, or what was the downfall?
Well, you're probably not far off, Mark. We, even though we were scoring in the first quarter, especially late in the first quarter, you're right. All of a sudden you look at the scoreboard and you go, even though we know it's Armory, they're going to play for 60 minutes. We might have been feeling a little too good about ourselves. And then, some of the shots we were taking as the game went on, we kind of trained the goalie low, and then we kept shooting low, and he was literally sitting on the ground sometimes making saves in anticipation of a low shot. We tried to adjust, and at the other end of the field, we just gave up too much easy too many easy goals. The guys were losing their man on the inside and high percentage shots. And, I think Drake could have played better, but when you're shooting, all but standing on the crease, you can't expect them to make those saves. So, we didn't really do anything well. I think we, did some good things facing off, but, we were supposed to in that game. Army's percentages aren't great in the face-off. So, we had to improve all aspects of our game.
And you mentioned you're kind of behind, and this would normally be where you're still scrimmaging. So given that, would you be ready to make lineup changes in the defensive end, especially after that first game, as you would if you were still doing scrimmages?
With so many players returning, and playing roles or starting roles, I don't think we could. I don't think we can panic right now. I think you're going to see some different players in the future, but that's because of how they're doing in practice. But I don't think we want to make wholesale changes right now till we give that experience back to the guys who have been out there, and some reminders to them.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Next, go to Arrow.
Coach, I want to touch on the transition defense, especially because I think 3 of Army's first 8 goals came on in transition. What are some of the things that you guys need to clean up in that department?
Well, I touched on it a little bit earlier that, and I don't go pointing the finger at guys, but when you're out there on offense, especially in the midfield, when there's a change of possession, your first job is to get back on defense. And then, most times it's their defensive players. If they stay on the field, they're clearing the ball, they're on offense, and now they sub out. So your job as an offensive midfielder is to get back and stop the fast break first, and then come off with and not give them those numbers. So when you're seeing transition going from defense to offense, somebody's coming off if they have numbers, and they shouldn't be coming off till, they've matched up and stop the fast breaks, stop the transition. And we had that a number of times, a player getting off and not getting back to stop the transition.
And then I just want to kind of check in on Grant, because he seemed like he got shaken up there. I think it was in the third quarter. He came back out and played. How is he doing now?
He's doing good. It was, it's quite a whack. It was not that it's funny, because it's not, but you could see him in the locker room, and he literally had the head of the stick and handle of the Army player embedded in his skin. You could literally take out this stick. So he got hit with the ball first, and then on the follow through, the stick came across his body, and it was implanted in him after the game. It was all like a red. I should have asked him to see it today to see if it was a dark blue bruise, but he took quite a whack. And a long handle, there's so much more leverage than a short handle that it's it's going to hurt that much more.
And then I think you mentioned that Wyckoff didn't play last week because he was banged up. Is he expected to start this week or play this week?
It's early. It's still somewhat, it's midweek, still early in the week. But yeah, I'd be surprised if he couldn't go.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next, go to Cameron.
Hey, Coach, it's a unique circumstance to coach brothers, and of course you're a friend.
Cameron, I think you're cutting out here. We'll come back to you in a second if you could adjust that. We couldn't really hear you there. Tyler, we'll go to you next.
Hi, Coach. A lot of history between your squad and UVA, 18 wins apiece. What about this matchup gets you excited?
Well, I think it's been the same for a number of years, when Dom Starsia was coaching. And now with Lars Tiffany, both coaches like to get up and down the field. And with Lars, it's continued that. It's always been a fast-paced game. You don't ever really see either team, pulling the ball out and using all 80 seconds of offense Usually, they have such good players, such talented players. They create things early in their offense, and then they try to pressure when you're clearing the ball. They pull their goalie out and they bring a defenseman up called a 10-man ride, and they try to create goals or changes of possession off their rides. So it's an aggressive style. It's a dangerous style, but they have the players to do it with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Cameron again. We'll try this.
Can you hear me now? All good? Perfect. Coach, it's a unique circumstance to coach brothers, and of course you have Frankie and Nick Hapney. What's it been like to coach the brothers, and what makes their relationship so special?
Well, we're still learning about them. So, we know they're brothers, but I guess we don't really, see the brotherly love on the field. They're both competitors, both a little different. I think one would play a little bit more long stick and the other would play a little bit more close defense. Both have the ability to do both, but, it's kind of neat. With COVID, you don't have that hands-on with the guy like in the locker room or, getting on a board or meeting with them individually to go over offense or defense. So, it's a little less personal than it normally is, more so than we'd like it to be. So we're still getting to know them. I'm still getting to know them. But yeah, it's neat having brothers. I mean, I coached my two brothers, way back in the day. So it's an interesting experience. And I think it'll only, as we go on and we get to know them a little bit better, we'll only improve.
And then, Coach, in preparation for this weekend, what do you think the biggest challenges are to stop Virginia's midfield? And what do you want to close up on close defense? What do you want to shore up on close defense going forward? Well,
it's really communication. When you've got somebody doing one thing and somebody not sliding or helping out, it's about talk, and when you're playing defense, even more so than offense, I think is, someone's covering the ball and if I'm the person that has to help out on him, I'm telling the person that has to come in and cover my guy if I leave to go double team the ball or go help out. And when you're not seeing that happen, then, a big piece of that is communication. And it shouldn't be, because the guys have played together long enough, in the defensive end. But I guess it comes down to practice and reps, and we need more of them. We need more in a game situation.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Nate.
Hey, John, I might be reading between the lines here a little bit, but when all this talk about kind of the truncated preseason leading up to the start of games, do you think that's tied into conditioning? How do you think you guys are in that area, and are your guys as well conditioned as you think they typically should be this time of year?
Watching some of the players run off the field, I think that we're fortunate that our group they do a lot on their own. Of course, weather-wise, they probably can't do as much when they were at home, before we came back. So no, I don't think we're in tip-top condition right now, given we've just finished 3 weeks. And it's a fine line too, because, with a game coming up, you want them fresh for the game. So how much can you work on the conditioning in a short period of time and still have them fresh, for the game? So you really have to monitor how much you're doing in practice, where you want to improve their conditioning, but you definitely have to taper later in the week so they're fresh and can go 60 minutes, especially in a game like Virginia, right? Because, that's going to be up and down the field more so than a lot of other games.
I'm even thinking the Army game too, and I'm wondering if some of those easy goals that you alluded to that were given up is maybe linked to conditioning or miscommunication, or what would you chalk that up to?
Well, definitely miscommunication. I think we're fortunate that we can run a number of short stick defensive midfielders and a number of poles. So I think that helps compensate for, any lack of, conditioning for this time of year. I think we're probably as good as we can be for the number of days that we've had practice. And again, I think our depth helps with, with that. We use quite a few. I want to say we used at least 5 short sticks and at least 3 poles.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Next, we go to Allie.
Hey, Coach. So I've got a question about looking ahead to like some other games later this season. So obviously you've got Virginia next week, 3-game win streak. North Carolina later has won 4 games. Even Hofstra and Utah have like some bigger wins. So like looking ahead to like these teams that maybe Hofstra and Utah like originally were thought like they would be like easier games compared to the rest of the ACC schedule. How are you looking ahead to everything else, and how are you going to prepare for those tougher opponents?
I can't look ahead, especially with Virginia coming up on Saturday night. But yeah, they're all going to be, nothing's easy. And, everybody's good nowadays, and especially with, some conferences maybe not, playing lacrosse this spring, and you've seen the portal blow up and players transferring from other schools just to try to get their extra year of eligibility in or 2. So I think a lot of schools are getting stronger with the transfer portal. So yeah, nothing's going to be easy. And if you want me to look ahead, it's anybody can beat anybody. And now we're just trying to do as much as we can to get our team caught up and getting them to improve as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Next, we'll go back to Andrew.
John, on the 3 starting defenders you guys had on Sunday, 2 of them were converted from either LSM or short stick. What is that transition like for those guys when you're trying to convert them to close defender? And ideally, in like an ideal situation, do you get kind of close defensive recruits that stick at that spot? Somebody like Nick, or the last time you played Virginia, you had Nick and Marcus and Bomberry back there. What is that transition like? And ideally, do you get the close defenders that kind of stick there?
Well, it probably, I think that Kennedy and Murphy both played defense in high school. So, when we had, like Nick Mellon, we could use Brett more up top, and it was pretty natural for him. Playing at long stick. Murph, we just had a lot of depth. So I think, his IQ is very high. And if you watch him on the field, you'll see he's one of our quarterbacks out there is directing the defense. So it was nice to, we weren't as deep as we are now in short stick. So we put him out there, and I think his IQ helped him play that position. He could, get on the ball, cover the ball. If he was beat, he could recover and get in and make good decisions on where to pick up the open man. And so for him to go back to the long stick, I don't think is as big a transition because he's had so much experience, playing defense over the years.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we go to Matt Kinnear.
Hey, Coach, how you doing? You mentioned early in this about the practice time and the lead up to the season, and kind of more of just like a national look of have a team like Virginia had a ton of practice and scrimmages going into the season and has looked really good. Same with like North Carolina. I guess just kind of from what you've seen, are you seeing that the way that different teams have had their off season structured and what they were able to do manifest itself in early play so far?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Practice makes perfect, right? And then, all of us, the more games we play, the more we improve throughout the year. So, if we're going against somebody that's had 3 or 4 games under their belt and a couple scrimmages, they're gonna be ahead of us. And there's nothing I can do about it. We'll coach the best we can and structure practice the best we can and watch film to see what we need to improve in and point out to our players so they can learn from that. Even film's different, right? Because it's Zoom. You aren't meeting in a film room and where they're looking at you and you can point this out and you can be a little more personal with things. So it's a trick for the coaching staff just to figure out how to coach your players through the media.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Next, go to Trey Redfield, and after that, we'll have time for one more.
Coach, last week it was Brendan Nichtern who dominated at the attack for Army. This week it's Peyton Cormier. He has 15 points, tied for the team lead down south for the Cavaliers. What does the defense need to do this time around to go against someone in the ACC like Cormier?
Oh yeah, well we've got our hands full because he's very good shooter. He's kind of a bull dodger. He really wants to get to his left hand, and he's got not only a good finisher inside, he's got range. Then you throw Moore out there, who's I'm sure he's on a Touraton list. Big strong attackman who is a terrific dodger. Cormier is a lefty, Moore's a righty. You throw Laviano inside, is a great inside player. The transfer Bertrand, and as you guys watch them, you're going to see they don't always play the same position. So there are a lot of times that when you watch Virginia play, they've got 6 attackmen out there. So depending on your matchups, they can always attack the short stick with an attackman. You can invert them behind the goal where short sticks don't play a lot behind the goal, and their attackmen are very comfortable being behind the goal. And guys like Cormier and Moore, now instead of being behind the goal, you put them up top and you invert behind and you slide down to help out. They've got such range and accuracy shooting the ball from those top corners. They're great bookends. So it's a lot to cover. You got to cover them when they're playing attack. You got to cover them when they're kind of outverting in front of the goal, where they can get their high velocity shots off. And there's not a lot of good answers. And I think in preparing them, talking with Coach Rogers, you have to do more of having the whole group understand all their players, as opposed to maybe, okay, Kennedy, you're going to be covering Cormier, and that's your job today. All of a sudden, you're going to look up and Cormier's on the sidelines, and somebody else is in on attack, or Bertrand, and now Cormier comes running in through the midfield when they're on offense. So it's everybody has to know their whole group offensively, because we don't know how we're going to match up. We know we'll have preferences on who we want them to cover, but depending on what position they come on, it could be different.
That's all I got, Coach. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Trey. For the last question, we'll go to Arrow again.
Hey, Coach. I know you mentioned the short sticks briefly before. I just kind of wanted to see what your assessment was of them, especially Dami. Looked like he got a lot of work, especially in the first half. They're kind of really attacking him, and Vilas in the second half.
Yeah, well, I know Army, especially when they had the lead, they do such a good job of using 80 seconds. I'm not sure Virginia going to be concerned about having the ball for 80 seconds at their offensive end, but especially when Army got the lead, they were going to be very patient and work for high percentage shots. And, with Nichtern, they like to put a short stick behind the goal so that you can get switches. So, if you watch some of his goals, they weren't with Kennedy on them, they were with another player on them. And they like to pick behind a lot just to get those mismatches. Where I think, and that's why you saw them as much as they did, especially later in the game when they had the lead.
Thank you. That concludes today's press conference. I'll send out something later this afternoon about the players that are going to be Thursday afternoon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.